The paper bag cut into Eleanor Hayes's fingers as she pushed open the back gate of her son's house. She always used the side entrance. It felt less intrusive. Inside, the kitchen lights glowed warmly. Through the window, she could see the long dining table already decorated for the family dinner. Eleanor adjusted the bag in her arms. Inside were fresh pastries, fruit trays, and the receipt from the bakery. $842.60. She hadn't told anyone she paid for the dessert table. She just wanted the evening to go smoothly. No tension. No awkward silence like last year. As she stepped closer to the door, voices drifted from inside. Her daughter-in-law's voice first. Light. Casual. Just let his mom handle the kids tonight. Eleanor paused. Then her son laughed softly. Yeah, she's good at that. Mom doesn't really do anything else anyway. The words landed like ice water. Another voice joined, her daughter-in-law's sister. Perfect then. 9 kids upstairs with her. Problem solved. Laughter followed. Easy. Unbothered. Eleanor stood there in the dark hallway, the grocery bag slowly slipping against her wrist. 9 children. A house full of guests. And apparently, she wasn't a guest at all. Just the babysitter. Her fingers tightened around the receipt until it crumpled. For a long moment she simply stood there, staring at the door that separated her from the people she had spent her whole life loving. Then, very quietly, Eleanor stepped backward and walked out the same way she came. But as she reached her car, one thought settled heavily in her chest. Tonight, for the first time in 30 years, she wasn't sure she was going back. And what Eleanor decided to do next would leave her entire family speechless. Eleanor sat in her car for a long time before turning the key. The porch light from her son Daniel's house spilled across the windshield, turning the glass into a pale reflection of her own face. Calm. Polite. The same expression she had worn for years. But tonight something inside her had shifted. The crumpled bakery receipt rested in her lap. $842.60. She had spent the entire morning driving across town picking up desserts, arranging trays, making sure everything looked perfect. Because she wanted her family to have a beautiful evening. And all along, they had already decided her role. Not mother. Not guest. Just the woman who handled things. The babysitter. The helper. The reliable background figure. Eleanor slowly started the engine. The soft rumble filled the quiet street. As she drove away, memories began surfacing one after another. Last summer when Daniel and his wife took a week-long vacation. Mom, could you stay with the kids? Just a few days. It became 10. Then there was Thanksgiving. Everyone sat around the dining table laughing while Eleanor stood in the kitchen washing dishes alone. No one even noticed she hadn't eaten yet. And Daniel's wedding. She had spent the entire morning setting up decorations and folding napkins. Later, when the photos were posted online, Eleanor searched carefully through every picture. She wasn't in a single one. Not even by accident. Her knuckles tightened on the steering wheel. When had kindness slowly turned into expectation? When had love turned into obligation? By the time she reached her quiet little house across town, the answer had become painfully clear. It hadn't happened overnight. It had happened because she had never said no. Eleanor stepped inside, placed the untouched bakery boxes on her kitchen counter, and stared at them silently. Then she picked up her phone and dialed the bakery. Because if her family thought tonight would run smoothly without her, they were about to discover just how much she had been doing all along. And when Daniel realized what she had canceled, he would come knocking on her door with anger Eleanor had never seen before. The bakery manager sounded confused at first. Mrs. Hayes? Is there a problem with the order? Eleanor stood by the kitchen counter, looking at the neatly stacked dessert boxes she had picked up only hours earlier. No problem, she said quietly. I just need to cancel the delivery for tonight. There was a pause on the line. But the order is already prepared. The cake, the pastries. I understand, Eleanor replied calmly. You can keep the deposit if you need to. The woman hesitated, then sighed softly. Well, we can refund about half. Around $400. That's fine. When Eleanor hung up, the house fell completely silent. For the first time in years, there was no schedule waiting for her. No children arriving. No dinner to cook. No family gathering she had to hold together behind the scenes. Just quiet. She walked slowly to the kitchen table and pulled out a small notebook. Across the top of a blank page she wrote 2 words. Given. Underneath, the list began filling quickly. Babysitting. School pickups. Weekend sleepovers. Doctor appointments. Holiday cooking. Loaning money. Hosting birthdays. The page filled faster than she expected. Then she turned the page. At the top she wrote another word. Received. Her pen hovered in the air. 10 seconds passed. Then 20. Finally, she drew a single short line across the empty page. That was all she could think of. Eleanor leaned back in her chair and stared at the 2 pages. For years she had believed family meant giving without counting. But now that she had finally counted, the numbers told a story she could no longer ignore. Just then her phone lit up on the table. Daniel's name flashed across the screen. And the moment Eleanor answered, she knew this conversation was about to change their relationship forever. Eleanor let the phone ring 3 times before answering. Hello. Daniel's voice exploded through the speaker. Mom, where are you? She leaned back in her chair, her tone calm. At home. A long pause followed. At home, he repeated. What do you mean at home? Everyone's here already. Paige said you were bringing the desserts, and the kids are asking where you are. Eleanor glanced at the bakery boxes still sitting on her counter. I won't be coming tonight. Silence. Then Daniel laughed nervously. Okay, you're joking, right? No. The word landed gently but firmly. Daniel's voice hardened. Mom, this isn't funny. Paige's sister brought her kids too. There are 9 of them here. We were counting on you to watch them upstairs. Eleanor closed her eyes briefly. Counting on you. Exactly what she had heard earlier. You didn't ask me, Daniel, she said quietly. You planned it. That's not the point, he snapped. You always help with the kids. What's the big deal? For the first time in the conversation, Eleanor felt something steady rising inside her. Not anger. Clarity. The big deal, she said softly, is that I'm your mother, not your childcare plan. Daniel exhaled sharply. So you're just abandoning us? Tonight of all nights. No, Eleanor replied. I'm stepping out of a role I never agreed to. Another long silence filled the line. Finally, Daniel muttered, frustrated, You're being dramatic. Eleanor looked at the quiet room around her. For the first time in years, no one was demanding anything from her. No, she said gently. I'm being honest. Then she ended the call. But what Eleanor didn't know yet was that Daniel wasn't finished with the argument. Because 3 days later, he would show up at her door. And the confrontation that followed would leave the entire family stunned. 3 days later, the knock came. Not gentle. Sharp. Demanding. Eleanor was standing at the sink rinsing a coffee mug when she heard it echo through the house. She already knew who it was. When she opened the door, Daniel stood on the porch, his jaw tight. Behind him were Paige and her sister, Melissa. None of them looked happy. You embarrassed us, Paige said immediately as they stepped inside without waiting. Daniel crossed his arms. The dinner was a disaster. People kept asking where the desserts were. And the kids, no one could control them. Melissa shook her head. We had to run to 3 stores just to find something. Daniel looked straight at his mother. You ruined the whole night, Mom. Eleanor leaned lightly against the counter, studying their faces. For years she would have apologized instantly, even if she wasn't sure what she had done wrong. But this time she didn't. I didn't ruin anything, she said calmly. I just stopped fixing everything. Daniel frowned. What does that even mean? It means I'm not the invisible worker behind your celebrations anymore. The room fell silent. Paige scoffed. So now you punish everyone because you're tired? Eleanor met her gaze. No. I protected my peace. Daniel looked confused, almost unsettled. As if the version of his mother he had always relied on had suddenly disappeared. Eleanor walked to the door and opened it. If you came for an apology, she said softly, you won't get one. None of them moved at first. Then slowly, awkwardly, they stepped outside. Eleanor closed the door. The quiet that followed felt different this time. Not lonely. Free. Because for the first time in decades, Eleanor Hayes had finally chosen herself.